Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Scouting for Growth. Today, I'm meeting with Pablo Duarte and Hilario Itriago, founders of InsurTech LATAM, a fast-growing insurance technology accelerator and ecosystem for startups wanting to enter the LATAM market via Miami. Both Pablo and Hilario have been leading insurance innovation in LATAM for years. They both come from industry like me, and you will discover during our discussion that we are all in the fractional world of tech, where we split our time across those projects that matter most to us. For instance, alongside supporting the InsurTech LATAM, Pablo is also Director Client Engagement at Bain and Company. Hilario is also the president at BOXX Insurance. They both also have built a number of platforms to support the broker ecosystem. During our discussion, Pablo, Hilario, and I share viewpoints into the InsurTech ecosystem in LATAM, how they support the incumbent world, the broker world, and the startup world, InsurTech LATAM in numbers, their InsurTech portfolio and opportunity across the LATAM region. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, do not forget to subscribe to it, rate it, and provide a comment here below. If there is a topic that you feel needs addressing, just send me a message using the channel option listed below too. So welcome, Pablo, and welcome, Hilario. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Scouting for Growth. Today, I am with two great friends located in Miami and covering the InsurTech LATAM world. Thank you so much for being with me, Pablo Duarte and Hilario Itriago. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine.
So
Sabine. Pleasure to be here.
And so let's start with some introductions. I will start with you, Hilario. We want to know about you, what you do every day and what got you into insurance and now InsurTech. And I will ask the same of Pablo afterwards.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So I'm Venezuelan by origin, so everybody knows. I've been in the insurance industry almost 25 years. My day-to-day today is I run BOXX Insurance, which is a cyber MGA, originally from Canada. I lead the business in the US. We're a Zurich invested company, so we're in definitely growth mode, and it's a very exciting time. We are growing the business in the traditional intermediated space, but we're also doing it in the non-traditional affinity space here in the US, which we think it's a great opportunity for us. What got me into insurance? Funny enough, I actually started my career in the oil industry in Venezuela, like any good Venezuelan would have done in the late 90s. But then a family member told me about Royal National Alliance and their graduate trainee program. And I thought, this sounds too good to be true. They take you in, they fly you internationally, they train you in insurance, and they pay you. So, how can it, what can go wrong? So I just thought, what, I'm going to give it a try at this. And if it doesn't work, there's always oil underneath the earth in my country. And I can always go back to the oil industry. So that's how I started. And I spent 16 years of my life at RSA. A phenomenal career, thankful for every minute of it to them and to everybody that I work with. One of the jewels of the people that I worked with from a talent and from an individual perspective was actually Pablo. And so I can say that I came out of RSA with the benefit of having known many great people, but one of those was Pablo. And then we've been partners since 2017. So
incredible.
There you go.
Pablo, God.
Yes. So I'm originally from Mexico, Mexico City, huge city. And I started my career as a management consultant, which actually is what took me close to the insurance world. I had several engagements in the insurance space, and basically I ended one of my clients was RSA Insurance, and I eventually joined the company focusing on strategy and sales for different emerging markets, obviously including Latin America. But got the opportunity to learn about several other insurance markets around the world, which is definitely quite enriching and has been quite fun. And yeah, basically after RSA, I joined Hilario in this InsurTech journey since 2016, which was quite interesting. Like back in those years, InsurTech was just starting in Latin America, so not much activity going on, and sometimes we were even wondering if we made the right choice getting into InsurTech at that time. But obviously, over the years, seeing so much growth was definitely quite appealing, fascinating, enriching, great learning experience. And yeah, today I'm besides being the co-founder, I'm a mentor at the InsurTech LATAM accelerator, which is definitely one of my passions, but also work for Bain and Company, which is one of the management consulting firms I used to work for, scaling some of their ventures, specifically a venture named NPS Prism, and that keeps, the excitement of entrepreneurship still as an important part of my day-to-day job.
So today is all about InsurTech LATAM, and I would love to hear from you, gentlemen, what excites you and what interests you about what insurance technology ventures can bring into a world, starting with you, Hilario.
Oh, listen, I think the insurance space, as we know it, has a phenomenal opportunity with the transformation that technology brings to it. Right, that as a baseline position, there's clearly a before and an after. Technology came into our world. The second part of that is the fact that technology is actually now in the hands of consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that is a massive change, and it's a massive change because one of the key things that we really want to make sure that happens in our markets is that more people get insurance. We're convinced that the more people have insurance coverages, the better their social and economic development certainly would be. And it's not something that we have come up with. It's something that's been proven on mature economies. So, in that sense, we think that the ability that InsurTech has to bring products closer to the everyday individual that can benefit from insurance coverage, doing it in a very simple way, in a very efficient way, it's actually an opportunity that must be leveraged, and that both incumbents and InsurTechs alike have the opportunity to do so. In what type of mix could that happen? It's down to the market. It's down to how the opportunity presents themselves in large markets, in small markets, in different markets. But certainly something that, as collaborative as insurance has been over the centuries, the opportunity of InsurTech is no different. We believe that incumbents and InsurTechs have the ability to collaborate across the entire value chain, and the fact that we can promote and try to influence of that happening more and more, I think the better everybody's going to be, from the industry insiders all the way to the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Pablo, tell me a little bit more about what you see as well.
Yeah, so definitely, I would echo Hilario's points. I think through InsurTech, we see greater customization and personalization of value propositions, and that is key, because traditionally insurance has been very structured and hard to sometimes fit into the specific needs of customers. But the other thing I would add to that is a new role that I think can emerge in the industry around prevention. Is like incumbents, insurance companies shouldn't be there just to pay the claims, but need to have a more active role in preventing the claims from happening, and that can be enabled through the new technologies, through InsurTech. And that's why that collaboration that Hilario is talking about is so important, because it's through that we can expand much more the role of the sector from a very limited role to a much to something more relevant, more important, which is let me help that wherever uh, accident or issue does not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And through sensors, cameras, predictive models, and so on in InsurTech, that can be now delivered to our markets.
That's interesting. So tell us a little bit more, Pablo, around the size of the market in LATAM. Because, when I started with InsurTech, I guess 7 years ago, there were very few startups, but I looked at it globally, right? So the first year I could, identify probably 1,000 company, which has a touch point with insurance, very much around customer engagement. Now there is, based on my data, around 6,000 of them, but still only 20-25% receiving investment. Tell us, what is the scale of InsurTech in LATAM? How much money have they raised? How are they doing?
Yeah, so the InsurTech market in Latin America continues to be very active. Unlike what we saw in other markets where valuations plummeted, we haven't seen such an effect in the Latin American market, and I'll explain in a moment if you want why is that happening. But and that doesn't mean that maybe they will adjust at some point to some level, but we haven't seen at least the significant declines as in other markets. There are about 400 insurtechs in Latin America. The growth rate is about 20% year over year. And about 6% of the companies die every year, as in with any venture ecosystem. Some of the fastest growing markets are Colombia and Brazil. Colombia maybe the fastest one, but from a scale perspective, still significantly smaller than Brazil. Brazil growing over 30% per year, and being the largest market of Latin America. About I would say about 1/3 of the entire Latin American market is concentrated in Brazil. Something exciting about Brazil is that during the initial years of InsurTech, it was a very isolated market. You didn't see many InsurTechs from other Latin American markets go to Brazil, and also from like none from Brazil going to other markets. But that is starting to change more recently with greater collaboration, let's say, between the rest of Latin America and Brazil. And that is a tremendous opportunity, because the Brazilian market is indeed huge. Just to give you a bit more context, Mexico is the second largest market, obviously, with about 18% of the insurtechs. And then you have Argentina with about 16. Argentina is one of the most innovative markets, I would say, in the region. It's where you see some of the newest business models coming out. So definitely a very interesting market, even when economically speaking, the market is not doing as well as some of the other markets in the region. Colombia with about 10%, and other countries with smaller percentages. Chile also like 10%.
Incredible.
So similar to Colombia.
Incredible. I mean, I would have expected for sure Brazil, Mexico to be some of the top markets for insurtech startup, like they were for fintech. And it's great to see that actually it's spread across the continent as well, going into Colombia, Argentina, and Chile. Hilario, is coming to you. What are the top trends? you are focusing on cyber, but looking at those startups entering the market and trying to solve for major local problems. Can you tell us, your view around commercial versus personal? Can you tell us about what you see around the top trends and why they are so important for LATAM?
Sure. Just to complement Pablo on the previous point quickly, I think Argentina is a country that has been known for innovation way before we call it fintech and insurtech. It's a very entrepreneurial country. And precisely because of the sort of economic circumstances and all that, they have a very strong pipeline of solutions that are created in Argentina, are growing in Argentina, but definitely want to go elsewhere for growth. And companies like Mercado Libre, for example, are examples of that, and many others. And in terms of the smaller markets that punch above their weight, Pablo mentioned Chile. Our first insurtech unicorn actually comes from Chile,
Okay.
which is Betterfly, and so I think it's a great balance between large markets, large pipeline of insurtechs coming from the big markets, but equally smaller quantities, but tremendous quality coming from the smaller economies as well. So I think that balance is what gives the great potential to us in Latin America as well. Going back to your point, I think like anything, we saw the early days of insurtechs focusing more on personal lines, focusing more on distribution, focusing more on that type of disruption, which typically is the sexy aspect of where people want to go. But I think over the years, you've seen that more and more companies are tackling the commercial space, whether it's small commercial or things more traditional on the larger scale of commercial business. We have insurtechs like Simply in Chile, who does small commercial, does it really well. They've now gone to Mexico. You have companies like Suru, who is focused on the transportation side of things and the marine space, and they're growing really fast as well from Peru, going into Mexico and other markets. So I think what's happening is new entrepreneurs that are pivoting their business models are realizing that there's a great deal of opportunity in the commercial space, not so much only because of the size of those books, but also because of what Pablo mentioned earlier, which is there's a great deal of opportunity in the sustainability aspect of the commercial insurance space. We are starting to see more and more opportunities there, and therefore more and more insurtechs. And I think that is one of the angles that it's going to make many of the main economies in the region see more solutions in that space, and actually more innovation, I dare to say, in that space that could also be taken to other markets.
Yeah. Interesting. And, one thing that would be great for you gentlemen to touch upon is your portfolio. When you look at InsurTech LATAM, what type of startups have you been working with, accelerating? I read this morning when I looked at some of the numbers myself, that you also have another unicorn called Confio. Am I right? And so it's probably employers benefit, maybe going more into the life side. When I look at some of the numbers as well, for sure, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Colombia. And so from an article viewpoint, I see Swiss Re doing some activity. I mean, they've done some work recently with Joycar. A lot of work probably in auto, but as you know, sustainability and commercial lines is one of my top priority for 2023. I find it fascinating, and I think there is a massive opportunity to be grabbed here by collaborating with startup alongside building new solutions of the future. But the one also which interested me, which I saw from last year, is female founders, right? One of the largest raises in LATAM was for a startup from a female founder, which raised around 7 million. And that was in August last year. So tell us a little bit more about your portfolio and how that fits into some of the themes you're actually focusing on as well. Starting with
Sure.
Hilario, you want to start? Oh,
I'll start. I'll start, and I'll let Pablo complement. But
Perfect.
because he's the more finance type of guy of the two of us. But I think in general, when you think about the years that we've seen InsurTech develop in LATAM, one of the things that we've realized is there are pockets of opportunities within different line of businesses that have the potential to become quite relevant. And some of those are, more in the traditional space of personal lines. Some others are more in the commercial space. But in general, when you look at them, these are companies that have found niches where incumbents see the value they bring to market and are either collaborating with them or have partnered with them. And so we see a lot of potential when that collaboration happens. So our portfolio has a number of companies that go from small commercial insurance on the property side, um, 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 distribution around the personal lines, new type of risks, assets to be insured, like gadgets and mobile equipment and things of that nature, all the way to motor telematics, that space, and even assistance space. We believe that the assistance segment has a great opportunity, particularly when you think about parametric insurance going forward. And so we think that investing in those type of platforms that touch different line of businesses, different distribution models, and equally different potential for growth in multi-market strategies, it's the way to go. So Pablo, I'll let you complement and give
yeah.
more details around that.
So, and the other aspect we look at for our portfolio is that it needs to be we invest in companies that already have proven their model and are already in a stage of scaling to new markets, already have some maturity in them, because that's also a way in which we balance bear the risks, the risk of the portfolio. The other aspect we consider is basically having a clear impact on certain themes. For example, sustainability that you mentioned, Sabine. So one of the investments we made was in Go Clear, which is basically a telematics play with sustainability as well. Or having a clear social impact. And one example there is Simply, which is this company that Hilario mentioned before, which basically provides insurance for small businesses. And they have actually a very interesting acquisition strategy where they have existing clients, those small videos where they share their experience with insurance and the services from Simply, that have helped educate the market. And that's one of the biggest gaps we have in Latin America. We have a very low penetration of insurance in the region, particularly in small businesses. And that's because, the lack of education, the fact that this is not mandatory, and other reasons, but education is key. And their acquisition strategy has proven to be very, very successful because they are educating the market. And that's something we love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting you are saying that insurance need to be. I mean, insurance is being bought, right? You have to go and buy it because you need it and realize you need to be covered. But education becomes really key, partly as we move into a world where new emerging risks arise all the time, right? We are digitized and we are on digital channels all the time, which I think it's potentially a reason why, Laios, you're actually seeing cyber such an exciting opportunity, right?
But listen, the cyber point is a phenomenal one, and it's one that I am a super believer because when you think of all the emergent risks that we've had in a number of years, cyber is the one that is, in my opinion, the most universal.
Mm-hmm.
It can hit the poorest of the poor the richest of the rich, the smallest of the companies, and the biggest of the corporations. There's absolutely a universal aspect of it where everybody is going to benefit by being covered against cyber risks. And then when you look at that spectrum, cyber has the ability, and again, or something that Pablo said earlier, where the element of prevention, prediction, but also covering with insurance actually kind of inverts the three lines of defense that we use in the traditional insurance space, where you bring education, where you bring knowledge, where you bring tools to actually monitor your exposure to risk on a 24/7 on-demand basis, and then ultimately the third line of defense being the actual insurance policy. That's actually turning the model on its head, and it's a phenomenal thing to look, and I'm sure to evaluate over time to see how it actually evolves and matures. But I think cyber in general is something that is a tremendous risk to propagate across consumers, to make sure that everybody's aware as to how to protect themselves, because it's not going to discriminate of who you are or what kind of company you work in. You're exposed, so better be protected.
Yeah. So where do you see the market going moving forward? Where is going to be the InsurTech opportunities in LATAM?
Yeah, I would say there are we see a few. One that is quite important is in penetrating the middle and lower socio-economic classes. That's still a blue ocean, I would say, and it's about finding the right value proposition. But now with technology, that's definitely a possibility. And within that, spaces like micro life insurance, certain health coverages. I don't want to say health insurance because actually that line is not necessarily profitable in the region, but some health coverages is where we see some of the biggest opportunities and where there is much need and social impact in those. The other one is around I would say parametric coverages that are simpler and with technology the use or application of parametric coverages is expanding. Several of the Latin American markets are catastrophic, cat exposed with earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it, like El Niño, La Niña, all types of phenomena that make the opportunity to insure property under parametric models quite appealing. And I would say cyber, definitely, as Hilario was pointing out, that's another space, because everybody is exposed, and everybody has at least a cell phone and an email account, etc. Is finding the right propositions.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, Lilios, please.
let me just add a little tiny bit in there, and mixing it with your previous question as well. I think we also are looking at areas of opportunities. When you look at the architecture of risk management and risk coverage, one of the things that we're seeing is there's a great opportunity to accelerate the distribution of insurance, particularly with non-traditional players.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other companies that we invested in is WeCover. They have a platform that allows anybody to actually create their own InsurTech, as they call it.
Oh, wow.
In other words, what that means is actually you can go to a white goods distributor in Peru and say you can use insurance as a strategy to grow your business. And in fact, we have a platform that can help you do that. And in fact, that platform can bring an incumbent to actually take the risk. And so those are people that are not traditionally used to be approached for that kind of
I think
effect of actually adding them. It becomes phenomenal. And then the last bit to that is you would also see areas of opportunities where the assistance component, I'm a big believer in the assistance component as a vehicle to parametric. You can also bring these type of new assets mobile phones, tablets, computers, things that the new generations are being more important than their car because they're not buying cars.
Yeah.
Many of them are in Ubers and all that. That's the segment whereby you can also have a differentiated entry point into expanding the insurance coverages for new generations. So I think those two are tremendously important in our region as well.
Anything else you want to add, Pablo?
No, just I'm actually one of those. I use Uber and Lyft and all those services. I don't have a car, so I'm waiting to buy that coverage.
Yeah, and insurance is everywhere, right? It could be embedded everywhere, and I do think that some of the way the world is going will force people to be more aware of the risk which are there and impacting them in their home, outside the home. You mentioned La Nina, El Nino. Those things are areas where people say, I wish I was protected better. And I understood the value of insurance not after, but before, right? Often you need major risk for people to realize the value of why we get insured.
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you look at venturing and investment in the market, any additional final words you could add around, getting investors ramped up into investing in LATAM? And if there is investment coming into the market, where is it coming from?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start and let Hilario complement. So last year, the region received nearly 1 billion in investments. The investment rate has been declining versus previous years, given obviously all the economic conditions. But the drop was about 35 to 40% versus 2021, and we haven't seen any further or major acceleration in the investment since so far. So is still to be seen as one of the reasons why I believe the Latin American market is more resilient in keeping some of the valuations and the investment is because of the nature of most of the startups. Not everyone, obviously there are exceptions, but typically local investors deploy capital when companies have proven to have profitable models. So it's less about what you see in other markets of grow super fast, burn a lot of cash, or at least what it used to be, burn a lot of cash to accelerate your growth. And let's prove if there is a clear path to profitability. That was sometimes not very carefully checked. Here, typically companies need to prove that they, before receiving any investment, that they can grow, have an appropriate acquisition cost, let's say, before they get funds, and that lowers the amount of risk compared to other markets. Some of the exceptions we have seen have been some of the insurtechs that have raised capital from large international funds, SoftBank and others, where that nature I just described of the insurtechs deviates a bit because they start getting the pressure of then growing very fast, and that then but they have the cash from those international VCs to fund it. But that's not the typical, I would say that's not the typical insurtech path in Latin America. And that's why I think it remains a very attractive market for outside investors if they maintain, I would say, that trend of investing only in insurtechs that are already profitable and have some scale.
Yeah. I would add just simply there that there's a great it's a great environment in Latin America for investors to see their investments actually have a path to scalability.
Mm-hmm.
Because many of these insurtechs either come from small economies that by the nature of it want to go international and go into bigger markets, like Brazil, like Mexico, etc., or they've actually been brewed in those big markets. The beauty of that is that it doesn't stop there. Every Latin American dream, and it's actually fully connected, is the bridge to the US market. And so those with greater potential have the ability to scale beyond the region, even though they have a region to scale themselves and prove themselves, as Pablo was saying, before they can make the big jump. So if I was an investor, I can see that I have many avenues to actually take advantage of not only what Pablo mentioned earlier around the path to profitability being the priority, but also because of the lower cost of the tickets vis-a-vis the quality of the technology used by these insurtechs and their ability to scale. So I think those three are really important.
A few things you said as well, which resonate, is the ability to distribute and actually find a way to drive that unit economic, right? And also do that, if you don't mind me saying, cheaply, because one needs to control one's cost of acquisition, the CAC. And so all those criteria become important. So you need to find a way to identify your customer segment, the niche you are going to serve, and serve that niche across LATAM, and then look at how you are going to scale in the Americas. But also, you said from an investor viewpoint, you mentioned SoftBank. I've seen Sequoia and also Norway investing in the market, but also that drive a different profile where the company needs to scale fast, acquire the employee base to deliver on the strategy. And that can often be also difficult if you don't have internally the right culture and the right strategy, because it takes time to iterate those, isn't it?
100%. 100%.
So, what would be your word of wisdom? I'll start with you, Hilario. What would be your last word of wisdom?
I think we have a tremendous market in Latin America. I think we have a great pipeline of companies for investors to look at. I think we have the great culture and ability to keep honest the sense of urgency that these entrepreneurs have to grow. And one of the things that I like the most is that we have a hunger for success and for legacy building. Because of what we said at the beginning of this conversation, many of our entrepreneurs are really trying to make a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs used to say.
Yeah.
Change the way our penetration of insurance in our markets is at the moment. And not only have success because of the venture itself, but have success because of the social impact and economic impact it can create. It's very hard to talk to an entrepreneur in the insurtech space in our region that don't have that belief. And if they don't have it, we try to ingrain it into themselves because it's just the right thing to do in our view. So I think that is one area that makes us super attractive, and we're super open to have investors and other players that want to look at our region and us helping them understand it better, because it's a tremendous area of opportunity in not only in emerging markets but in international markets in general.
Super. Pablo?
Yeah, and for me, it's more an advice for entrepreneurs, as entrepreneurs ourselves, which is really enjoying every day of the journey. There are obviously like good times and bad times. It's a roller coaster, as many say, but at the end, when you see back, is about just seeing how much you are learning, how much you are growing personally from this entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's what also injects joy in life, having the ability to learn every day about some new model, some new insurtech, because again, just in Latin America, we see about 100 new insurtechs every year, and then add to those the ones in other markets. It's a fascinating and enriching learning experience, and I think that doesn't have a price, even when you factor in some of the tough moments in the entrepreneurial life.
Yeah, wise word. So thank you very much for your time and your advice, gentlemen. Where can we find you if people want to reach out? Where do they go?
Well, we can start by, they can reach us at www.latam-insurtech.com. That's our base for LATAM InsurTech, and everything that we're doing there, from the accelerator to data insights to labs for innovation. And then we are as far as an email. So in my case is Hilario at latam-insurtech.com. And Pablo, over to you.
Yeah, and for me it's Pablo D, as in David, at latam-insurtech.com.
Superb. You mentioned David, and there is one campaign I really enjoyed last year, which was Zurich's campaign around David and Goliath. So David, the startup, Goliath, the big company. So hey, everything comes back together, huh?
Phenomenal.
Lovely to see you both. Thank you very much for your time, and I guess I will be in touch anyway through the Grapevine.
Fantastic. Thank you for the invitation, Sabine.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sabine.
If you like this podcast, subscribe now, share with your friends, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a 5-star review. Also, if you want to cover any specific subject with me, contact me on Instagram under Sabine VdL Officials or LinkedIn under Sabine VdL. Thank you.